Now,
Great.
if you want to ask something else,
Yes,
go
I have
ahead.
many questions. So well, let's kind of go back and talk about your youth. You said that one thing that really struck me about your thing was your story was how your parents hadn't seen you compete.
Right.
I mean, obviously, no offense to them or anything, but that seems like that's really unfair.
Well, it was what was done at the time. My mom probably saw me compete some because sometimes she drove to events. So she probably saw me. My mom was the least competitive of the five of us, including my parents. My brothers and I were all very competitive. We all played in high school. We all played in college. They didn't give girls scholarships, but they gave boys scholarships. So the boys had scholarships. And it was just the way things were done then. It's not something I feel bad about. I mean, sure, I wish they'd gone to, when I went to state badminton tournament and I went to state archery tournament, but that's the way things were, and it's okay. And they would have been there if that would have been what you do at the time. Not arguments over sports, but when I got to high school, Mark's a year younger, Paul's 2 years younger. When I got to high school, they wouldn't let me play basketball with them anymore. But the part about being competitive, while I was teaching at the junior high, we were going down to Lake Maxinkuckee for a winter get-together because somebody had a place down there. So I took the hockey sticks from school and we went out on the ice and played ice hockey. Now that meant our young children were out there too, but it didn't make any difference. We still competed just like we competed when we were in high school. So that competition has gone on, but it was always done very fairly. My father got boxing gloves for us when we were probably in maybe third, fourth, and fifth grade, second, third, and fourth grade. I didn't box very much, but I did. And Dad was always the judge or whatever you call him, and we would box against each other. And I didn't do that too many times, but I did do it. And it was fun. And now we compete in board games. We aren't as much on competing in physical activities anymore since we're all over retirement age, but we still compete. That's what we were brought up doing, is playing. And we lived on a farm when I was little, and there weren't a lot of kids around, so we had to invent our own things. And we played a lot. We didn't always agree, but we also got along. I mean, what brothers and sisters that are 3 years apart get along all the time?
I don't know many.
No, but we had a good time together, and we still have a great time together. Oh, I think that, and I think our parents never talked about what are you going to do when you get out of high school. It was, what are you going to do when you get out of college? So I remember from being very young, and our parents supported whatever activities we wanted to be in. If we started an activity, you finished an activity. And I also think that being involved in our church and being Christians, my parents were very good, caring people, leaders. And I would say that the three of us are leaders in our own way. And sometimes when we have to make decisions, when it's all leaders, it's a little hard. But we get it done. It's just, it's a good life. It wasn't built up like it is now. The whole community gets involved. I doubt if anybody knew I was going except my best friends, and because a lot of times they were going also, and my parents. I don't even know if my brothers went. But one of the things, my brothers didn't think that badminton was a competitive sport. So I decided, with Miss Mather's permission, she let my brothers come in, and I got to play my brothers in badminton. I whomped them big time for the first time. And there was a new respect there for women athletes. And their girls, especially my one brother, all three of his daughters have played golf at the state level for IHSAA. So it has played through all of our lives with what our kids do and what jobs we have had. They've been jobs that have some competition in them with sales and marketing and those types of things, teaching at school. And then with Dorothy, she taught archery in PE class. And then we did it after school and we competed. And then when I went to the junior high to teach, there was archery equipment there. We continued. And before I retired, Bodie Shively, who was the man's PE teacher, went to a conference and he got compound bows for us, not using recurve bows anymore. I don't know if they're still doing that today. Dorothy was an outstanding, in my opinion, an outstanding woman, a wonderful role model for somebody who wanted to be a physical educator, a wonderful role model for somebody who wanted to be a coach. And she was so good about teaching proper skills, doing things properly, and behaving the way you would want your children to behave. And she was a real role model to me. I mean, I had wonderful role models as family and my parents' friends and everything, but Dorothy was really special. My goal was to beat her in badminton, and I only beat her once. And maybe she let me. I don't think she did, but Mindy Pesh downstairs has played badminton for Dorothy also. And Dorothy was very kind, but she expected a lot. And she expected us to do our very best. It was, but I think if you look back at Dorothy's history, there were a lot of us that went on to become physical education instructors or in the field somehow. I mean, I can name several people that we have helped. She has helped us get to where we are now. And, don't ask me to name them right now because I can't off the top of my head, but there's a lot of us that she really helped. I went to Indiana State. I played volleyball for 4 years, and I played badminton for 2 years.
Who was your coach in volleyball?
Volleyball was Dr. Lemon at Indiana State, and Dr. Starr was the badminton coach. No, there was not a conference then. We would go to like Purdue or IU, and there would be 6 or 8 schools there. And there would be, I think, a double elimination tournament or a round robin, depending on what we were playing. So you played several games in one day, and then you went back. And the leg cramps after some of those days were really bad because we didn't condition. We didn't have an athletic trainer. We didn't have weights. There was very little conditioning. We had the skills, but we were not conditioned athletes like the girls are today. It was because it was before 1972 when this was not a part of the program. It was a developing program, again, in college, where now they have team doctors, they have weights, they have trainers, I'm sure they have dietitians, and they have study tables and all these. And we didn't have any of those. And if you got hurt, good luck. You had to take care of it yourself. Well, I don't know. We didn't.
In some ways, yeah.
In some ways, but we didn't play at the skill level they play now. We didn't have the skill level. I don't know that I would be a good enough, if I went back to high school now, I don't know that I could be a good enough athlete to play at the level they play at now. Well, maybe, but I don't, I just feel very fortunate that I got to play and got to have fun doing it. It wasn't, my parents did not tell me how good I had to be. who I had to beat or anything, and I don't really remember them telling my brother. Brothers, I know there were discussions, but Dad never involved himself in that too often, or if he did, not when I was around. Money was a big factor when Title IX came in, because now you have to pay the coaches equal. You have to have uniforms, which are very expensive, and you have to have equipment, and you have to have facilities and scheduling. So all of these things come into play. At the junior high, we played most of our games in the Centennial building because the Lincoln gym was too small. It was a fun time, but a tough time, because we had to convince the men that we were capable. And it ended up, Larry McFerrin was the athletic director at the junior high, and he knew when Carol and I got there. He probably wished we hadn't at times, but they came around, and it made it harder for the athletic directors because they had to get more officials. They had to have different, we had to have certain volleyball stands and certain volleyball courts and certain nets and all these things. We had used PE ones, and you just do the best you can do with what you have. You don't put up official things. Plymouth was pretty progressive on that as far as the whole thing goes. We were, just being at the junior high, we were a little ahead because Carol and I were the kids deserved this. And they knew that we had support of the parents. When we were coaching, parents came to watch. One particular father came and he'd had boys in sports. He'd never had his daughters in sports. And he wasn't yelling the right things at his daughter. So I decided, well, what do I do? And he was pretty sure of himself. So I went over and spoke to him, and I said, I don't care if you yell, but you need to learn to yell what's appropriate. It was a volleyball game. He was yelling things about basketball and things you'd yell at basketball and football games. And he really became a great supporter of our girls' sports. Sometimes, yeah. No, we've always had good participation. And Carol, if she had been here today, would have told about, she remembers the first time a bunch of boys came to a girls' game. And ever since then, the boys have been supporting girls' sports in Plymouth. And they support each other, and they're friends. And they have a good time together. And when I was in high school, we had an intramural program. And it was a co-ed intramural program that I loved. I mean, that was just the best thing, because then I could play with the guys, and their skill set was higher because they were stronger. And yeah, I really liked that. Well, girls were playing sports. They wanted to play sports. They knew they were good. And the coaches and women that were older that could do it knew they were good. And it just took a lot of women saying, hey, it's time. I mean, can you imagine? Maybe you don't, but I love to watch women's basketball on TV. They are so strong and so good. And really, they're not as strong and not as tall as the men, but they play the same way. They may not dunk as much, but they really play, and they're competitive, and they're not wimps when they have fouls. That's for sure. And I think that we've taught our girls not to be, look, if you're going to play the game, you've got to be tough. And most of us are pretty tough. I just remember being involved in setting up the program, and that it was something I could do for the community and the girls in our community. And Carol came in at the time. She was a social studies teacher. And so, but she had a good background, and she liked to coach. And she's now the athletic director at the junior high. So she's been there, gosh, since 1973. And she is really, right now, the backbone of the whole program. So we've come from women not being involved to women being athletic directors. Women being coaches. We've even had a few women, not in Plymouth, but we've had women be coaches on men's team. The athletic trainer is maybe a woman for men and women's teams. So we've come a long way with what's going on. Well, I was aware of what was going on. I did not. Did I go? I don't remember. I'm sorry. Carol was involved. Carol was an assistant coach when the volleyball team went to state. And I went down and kept stats for those games. That I remember. But by 2001, I really wasn't coaching. I was still teaching, and I don't remember. Oh, sure, because the girls that were on the high school team were the girls that were on the junior high team that had an undefeated season in junior high. So this team that was undefeated in junior high just kept going, and the coach they had at that time was really, really tough. Carol was an assistant coach. And it was really neat to be having had those students anytime they've done well. It was neat because we had the students, whether I had coached them or not, because I didn't coach the entire time I taught. When it was time for my son to play, I retired from coaching at the junior high level because I'd coached lots of people's kids and I got to watch my own. Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I took what I thought I knew and did the best I could because the high school was dealing with the same thing. Dorothy was there and they were beginning also. But I had coached a year in Bremen first at the high school level. So I had an idea of what to do when I came to Plymouth. But by the time you teach 6 classes or 7 classes a day, and then you travel for a team and coach, I was pretty tired all the time, I think. But those are things, they were good times, and because I don't dwell on bad times. Life has been good. Well, I still expected kids to come to practice. I expected them to know the basic fundamentals, and I expected them to follow all the rules, and that included out-of-school rules, like the night before we played on, let's say we played Saturday, and I expected you to be home in bed. But some of the things, and maybe they don't do them now, but after we got done with a season, like with basketball, we'd have both teams over to our house, and Carol would be there. And at that time, we only had 2 coaches. Now they have more coaches. But we'd have the kids over, and we'd have a pizza party and stuff like that. And maybe they're doing it now, but I don't know. No, but those were the fun things. And I'll tell you this, but you may not want to use it. The first year I taught in Plymouth, the kids, it was GAA. There wasn't any competitive sports, but the kids gave me a gift at the end of the school year. So here's this nice box. And I open it up, and 7th and 8th grade students gave me a silver-plated champagne bucket with my name engraved on it. Now, Mindy Pesch's name is on that card. I just thought I would put that in because you know Mindy, and that isn't a gift that I think kids give, and I have no idea where they came up with this, but that's what they did. And so there's lots of fun things that we did. And I think my husband cleaned up a lot of TP, which a lot of coaches clean up. Hopefully that was because they liked us. And coaching was fun. There were struggles with it, but there's struggles with life, and we focus on the good part. It was pretty easy. I had coached for 18 years, and our son was involved in swimming at the high school level. Well, he's involved in track and football at the junior high level, and those were not his sports. But swimming was, and swimming is a very time-consuming sport for anyone. And so it was very easy for me to step down because I was ready to. And I had a husband at home, and just, it was time. Just like there's a time to retire and a time to do all these different things in your life. I miss knowing some of the things about the students that you learn when you're coaching that you don't get to know when they're in your class, because you become much closer to those students. Even though you want to treat all students equally, those kids you know a little better. And I would say I probably see more of them as they have grown up in town than I see of some of the other kids. I remember their names better. Please don't put that in. No. Have any of the coaches missed the bus rides?
That's
No.
usually the first thing they say if they don't miss.
No, but Carol and I always used to take cherry lifesavers with us. I don't know why, but we did, and we ate those while we were coaching and driving on the bus. Carol and I have been friends for a long time. We have, our school life and our coaching life was together. Our private lives are very separate. So I don't see Carol very often, but I also know if I need something, she's there, and she knows that I'm there. She has continued to, she is the best organizer. She can run a track meet, just make it click. And Plymouth hosts the conference track meet for the junior high. And it's gotten so, it just goes perfectly because she's got the same people. I'm not doing that anymore, but several of us have come back after we retired to do that because we can make it work. And
Pretty good team.
It's been a good team. It'll be interesting to see when Carol decides to retire how it all goes. Hopefully there's somebody in the background that is watching how all this goes, or another school takes it over because Plymouth hosts the conference meet every year. And that probably isn't the best thing, but we have good facilities. Oh, we get excited over, there's a young man at the high school in track. I think he's a senior this year that is at the top of the nation. People should be excited for that, and they should be excited for the kids for what they're doing. And yeah, the gyms are not filled like they used to be. It used to be hard to get a ticket to a game. It's not hard to get a ticket to a game now, and that's too bad. Part of that's because we have so many interests, and just our kids are doing so much. But I do think it's so important for the life of the community to be involved in something. I think on weekends, it's not sports, but on weekends, in the summer, you can see they come together for the farmers market, and they come together for all these different things. And it helps support our whole community. Now they're coming together to get the Reese Theater going. And sports are not the only thing in the community. Community is lots of different aspects put together. And I think that helps. And just people care. And there are people that don't care, but most care. And we need to hear the good stories about what our students are doing. That's the biggie. Well, and we have a wonderful speech team. We have a great drama department and all these things. So it doesn't make any difference. Sports isn't the only thing to be involved in. You need to be well-rounded and involved in whatever you like. It's not what your parents like, it's what the student likes. And then the parents need to support them as much as they can through picking them up, being home when they call, they need a ride home, feeding them good food, making sure they're in bed on time, and most of all, loving and supporting them. Well, the year that I had a volleyball team that went 13-0, sure, that's a good year. But no, I don't, because I wasn't coaching when we got into the conference. I was out of coaching by then. Just being a part of the girls' sports and how happy they could be. And you know, they're all different and they're all great kids. Oh, it's made me a better person. It's just made me realize what goes on in our community, how we can support our community in many ways, whether it's in your town, in your county, at your school, at your church, or a community activity. It's really, you get to know a lot of people through, and yeah, it's good. Life's good.